Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. We're diving straight into the latest Biostat Weekly newsletter to pull out the most important stuff happening where data meets health. Ready? Let's jump right in. All right, right off the bat, we're hitting a really big, kind of contentious topic in academia. You know that whole up or out tenure system? It's just piling pressure on young researchers, and it makes you stop and ask, what's the real goal here? And this quote, wow, it just nails the core of the issue. Are young academics treated as insiders, people we want to invest in and grow for the long haul? Or are they just passersby, kind of like temporary cogs in a machine, judged solely on what they produce right now? And here's where you can really see that split in thinking. On one side, you've got the insider idea. It's all about nurturing talent, giving people the support they need, and playing the long game. But then there's the passerby model. And let's be honest, this is what a lot of people are experiencing. It's just publish or perish, right? All about hitting those numbers, those rigid metrics. It's a completely different way of looking at things. Okay, so moving on from that big picture debate, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the latest research. We've got a quick roundup of 3 really cool studies that just dropped. First up, this one is out of Nature Medicine, and it's pretty mind-blowing. There's a new model called MinimM. And get this, you can basically type out a description and it generates a medical image from your text. Seriously. And this isn't just some cool tech demo. What makes Minim a huge deal is that it's the first model that can do this for all sorts of organs and imaging types. We're talking X-rays, MRIs, the whole lot. And the most important part, the images it creates are good enough to be used in a clinical setting. In fact, they're already helping improve how we predict things like lung and breast cancer. That's a massive step for diagnostic AI. All right, next up, from Nature Machine Intelligence, we've got a new framework called BNGWS. So for a while now, GWS studies have been awesome at spotting correlations. This gene is associated with this disease. But this new tool is trying to answer the much harder question: does this gene cause the disease? So what's the secret sauce? Well, it mashes up Bayesian networks with causal inference to actually map out these cause and effect networks between genes and diseases. This means researchers can finally start to measure not just the direct link, but all the complicated, indirect ways genes team up to affect our health. It's a huge shift from just knowing what is involved to understanding how it all works together. And for our last study highlight, this one's from JAMA Psychiatry. It's proposing a really interesting new way to think about mental health. Instead of just looking at specific diagnoses like their separate boxes, this research looks at a staging model, basically tracking how mental health challenges can develop and progress over time. And why does this matter so much? Well, the study backs up this idea that there's often a clear path. It might start with family risk, then move to some mild symptoms, and later lead to real difficulty with daily functioning. What's super interesting is it points to things like personality traits, neuroticism, for example, as potential targets we're getting in there early. The big takeaway here is that even having mild symptoms is a significant risk factor in itself, which is a powerful argument for helping people before things get more serious. Okay, we've covered some heavy research. Now, let's switch gears and talk about some practical stuff. This section is all about tools and tips that you can literally use to make your own work a little bit easier. So first, there's this concept called scientometrics. It sounds complicated, but it's really just the science of science. Think of it like taking a bird's eye view of the entire research world. And there's this great resource, the Open Scientometrics Learning Platform, that helps you do just that. See what's trending, who's working with whom, and just get a better feel for the entire landscape. Okay, so from that 30,000-foot view, let's zoom all the way in. If you do any kind of coding, you know that getting good at Git is basically a superpower. Well, there's a fantastic article making the rounds that's packed with practical tips. Things like really understanding branching, getting the hang of interactive rebasing, and setting up aliases to save time. Seriously, it's stuff that can make your day-to-day coding so much smoother. And to wrap up our tools section, check this out. It's a tool for Mac called Monkey Search, and it honestly feels a little bit like magic. We've all been there, right? Trying to remember the exact name of a file you saved 6 months ago? Well, with this, you just type what you're looking for in plain English. It's smart enough to understand the meaning and context of what's inside your files. It's like having a conversation with your computer's search bar, a total game changer. So let's just take a step back. We've talked about a huge debate in academia, we've looked at 3 cutting-edge studies, and we found some awesome new tools. But where does all this great stuff come from? In a world with so much information, how do you find the important bits? And that really brings us to our final idea: finding that signal in all the noise. And the answer, for everything we've talked about today, is the Biostat Weekly newsletter. And what's so cool about it is that this isn't some big corporate publication. It's a completely community-driven open source effort. It's just a group of passionate volunteers, the Open Biostat operations team, who spend their time sifting through everything to find the stuff that really matters, just to share it with the rest of us. And really, that leaves us with a final thought. In a field that moves as fast as this one, the problem isn't a lack of information, right? There's almost too much. The real challenge is curation. It's figuring out what's actually worth your time. So I'll leave you with this. How do you find what matters most? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.